I am Joshua Glenn Katubag. I will be discussing financial planning and forecasting. We have the topics in this chapter. So, first, financial planning and strategic planning. Second is the additional funds needed or the AFN equation. Third is the forecasted financial statement. We will be concentrating on sales forecast. So the rest of the topic are the rest of the topics the changing in ratio. So what's about financial planning? The goal of financial planning is to guarantee that the company or corporate has sufficient money and makes the right investment. Budget and funding are reasonable. Achieving the objectives of the corporate finance requires that every corporate investment be funded effectively. Financial planning is essential for ensuring that corporate investments are financed appropriately and that money is spent on worthwhile investment. There are elements of strategic planning. Uh, these elements, the main purpose of these elements is to set the overall goals for your business and to develop a plan to achieve them. So it involves stepping back from your day-to-day operation and asking where your business is headed and what its priority should be. So there are five elements to consider before you plan your before you plan your goals. I've listed down the planning process. So first, you have to consider the forecast financial statements under alternative operating plans. Second, determine the amount of capital needed to support the plan. Third, forecast the fund that will be generated internally and identify sources which from required the external capital can be raised. Fourth, establish the performance-based management compensation system that rewards employees for creating shareholder wealth. And the last is the management must monitor operations after implementing that plan to spot any deviation and then takes corrective action. Now, let's discuss what is forecasting. So, most of organization prepare a revised forecast for balance of the year, taking into account earlier budget on forecast. This step is particularly important if there are variants from original budget. For example, uh, if sales are less than projected because market conditions are less favorable than anticipated when the budget was prepared or forecasted. So the manager may look for ways to increase sales or reduce expenses in order to avoid a loss for the year. So organization may carry out a form of economic forecasting which is which is the process of making predictions about the economy. So a forecast can be carried out at a high level of aggregation like gross domestic product or GDP, like considering about the inflation, the unemployment, or the fiscal deficit. So they may also happen at the more disaggregate level for specific sectors of the economy or even specific business of or firm. Some forecasts are produced annually, but many are updated more frequently. So there are many other forecasts that manager ask for in order to try and anticipate what the future might hold, and so they can prepare contingency plan in case of unforeseen events. Example of unforeseen events that may affect future outcomes are the arrival of new competitors, the change of overall economic outlook, which could affect cost or revenue either positively or negatively, or even the arrival of new company in another line of business that could raise prevailing wages rates in the region. Now, um, I will discuss briefly what is sales forecast. Um, why is an accurate sales forecast critical for a financial planning? As I've said earlier, a forecast or a sales forecast helps every business makes better business decision. It helps in overall business plan, budgeting, risk management. So sales forecasting allows companies to efficiently allocate resources for future growth and manage its cash flow. So if just for example, if the sales forecast is off, the market, as I've said earlier, the market expands more than the company expects. So it will not be able to meet demand. So its customer will end up buying competitors' products, and it will lose market share, and also results in low profits and low ROE, and also may affect the depressed stock price. So financial capacity expansion with debt, high interest changes would compound its problem. So there are also seven benefits of accurate sales forecast, like aid target attainment, propels growth, improves how well you understand customers, quantifies your organization's health, bolster sales analysis, enables continuous strategic planning, streamline cash flow, credit, and financing. Now let's go for the third topic. What is AFN, or additional funds needed? So additional funds needed is a financial concept used when a business looks to expand its operation. Since a business that seeks to increase its sales level would require more assets to meet the goal, some provision must be made to accommodate the change in asset. We have here the Hatsfield balance sheet of year 2010 and income statement in year 2010. So um, for AFN, or additional fund needed equation, there are key there are we have an assumption to we have a short exercise for this example. First, assume that the operating at full capacity in 2010. Second, assume that sales are expected to increase by 15% or 300 million. Third, asset to sales ratio remains uh, the same, and also the spontaneous liabilities to sales ratio remains the same. And the 2010 profit margin, um, $24 over $2,000 sales equals to 1.2%, and the payout ratio is 35% will be maintained. These are the definitions of variables in AFN. So as you can see, we will be using this on in our exercise in the following slide. So just to recap, asset required to support sales called capital intensity ratio. So A0 as times or over sales, asset over sales, and the increase of sales, the spontaneous liability ratio, profit margin, and the payout ratio. Now, we can solve the AFN by using the AFN equation. So as you can see, the asset over sales less than the times the increase of sales less than the spontaneous liability ratio times increase of sales, and the 12% of profit margin, 12% profit at 0.012 profit margin times the sales plus increase of sales, and the payout ratio of 1 minus 1 minus payout ratio. So by computing, AFN equals $180 minus $15 minus $17.5. So the AFN or the additional fund needed is 147.75 million. Also use the self-supporting growth rate. So self-supporting growth rate is the maximum growth rate the firm could achieve if it had no access to external capital. So self-supporting growth or growth equation is profit margin times 1 minus payout ratio times sales, or times sales. Then asset minus liability minus profit margin times 1 minus payout ratio times sales. So as you can see, we have here 15.60 over $1,084. So equals 144% or 1.44%. So as discussed, self-supporting growth rate, um, if Hatsfield sales grow less than 144%, the firm will not need any external capital. So the firm's self-supporting growth rate is influenced by firm's intensity ratio. The more asset the firm requires to achieve the certain sales level, the lower its sustainable growth rate will be. Now, just a recap of changing ratios. So we've discussed in the previous topics what are the changing ratios, what are the uses, or what are the factors. So I've listed here the nine key financial ratios used to analyze profitability are the net profit margin equals net income divided by sales, the return of total asset, so equals net income divided by asset, basic earning power or EBIT, or the EBIT divided by total sales. Fourth, the return on equity or the net income divided by common equity. The DSO or the daily sales outstanding. The receivable divided by sales divided by 365 days. So receivables, sales divided by 365 days multiplied by DSO. The modified receivables, sales divided by 365 days multiplied by the average DSO. 8, the inventory turnover or the sales divided by inventories, and also correspond by inventories, sales divided by inventory turnover. By analyzing the changing ratios analysis is important for the company to analyze its financial position, liquidity, profitability, risk, solvency, efficiency, operations, effectiveness, and proper utilization of funds. So this also indicates the trend of comparison of financial results helpful for decision making for investment by company shareholders. So changing ratio it is also discussed by the previous reporters. So this my topic is just a recap for to use or the uses of the changing ratios. Thank you very much for your time and listening.